Okay, team. Hello again. Yeah, this is the fifth video of our series here, and we've tested all our tags, got all that working great, looks good. That's what we got on the right side of our screen. Now we're going to add some graphics to this because right now I'm sorry, I said right. I meant left side of the screen is all the stuff we put on here, but now we're going to use the right side of our screen to build a tank, basically, to fill up. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over to the right side of Crimson, and I'm going to click on Symbols over here. I'm going to click on Symbols over here. This is Symbol Factory. And I'm going to go down into the category called Tanks. Whoops. So if I go down here to the Tanks, TA, Tanks right here. And when you click on the category Tanks, you're going to see there's a whole bunch of different tanks in here. And ironically, they all operate the same. If you click on any of these tanks one time, you'll see there's a bunch of pre-built different colored versions behind the scenes. But you can change the colors, but these are the pre-built ones that are on here. Now, what I'm going to do, normally in classes I've used these tanks, but recently I had one of my students show me a really cool idea here. Let me see if I can find it. There should be a bucket right here. There's a 5-gallon bucket, and I thought that was interesting that he used a bucket. But I really, after a while, I looked at what we're doing here. We're filling up a tank. We're going to overflow and so forth. And I really like this idea of the bucket because it's like taking a hose to a bucket, and you put water into it, and as it fills up, it overflows the top, so it works out perfect. So I'm going to click on the bucket here. You can pick anything, but I'm going to click on a bucket. And these are all the pre-built different ones. I'm going to grab maybe this gray one right here, and I'm going to drag it out here on my page like so. And I might stretch this guy, maybe if this new mouse of mine will cooperate, like so. Now, I got an option here. I can either make this thing fill up with the water, and I can do that by double-clicking on this, and go into the shading tab, and down here we can change this to use a solid color, and we can kind of follow that. But you see what it does there? It kind of changes the whole thing. Now I think here, if I do this all channels, yeah, so it doesn't really, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave the bucket as is. What I'm going to use here for my level on this thing is I'm going to go to my home directory here. And there's this category here called Tank Cutaways. Notice I'm still in the Symbol Factory. And in the Tank Cutaways, there's all these different, sort of cutaways here, if you will. If I slide all the way down to the bottom, there's a LED style here with 20 segments. So if I click on this one time, again, all these operate the same way, you'll get a bunch of pre-built different colored versions. I'm going to grab this blue one right here. Now I'm going to drag this guy out here like this. Now I'm going to roll my mouse in a little bit and zoom in, and I might move this guy over to the side. I'm kind of zoom in, and I'm going to line it up. I'm going to try to line up the top with the top here like so. Maybe something like that. And then I'm going to grab the bottom here and stretch this. Oops, not that way. I'm going to grab right here and stretch this down so that that lines up. So if I, in the grand scheme of things, it goes from the top to bottom. All right. Now, maybe I'll make this guy just a little bit thicker like so. I'm going to double click on this scale that I put on here because I really want this to fill up with the values of our level raw. So normally you come in here, image tabs right here. There's nothing really in here to interact with. If I go to the shading tab, at first glance, it doesn't look like it does anything. However, if I hit the pull down here for shading and choose solid color, notice it says this custom mode 3. Notice this is all open. If I hit the pull down here, I'm going to choose the blue for my color. And then up here where it says fill mode block, if I hit the pull down, I can say, you know what? I want this to fill from the bottom. So I'm going to use the fill from the bottom. I now have a little contrast here, so I could obviously change to a different color here for the background color. Maybe I'll go with the yellow here, really get a contrast. But I want this thing to follow the level raw. So I'm going to go over here to data tags on this side. And I'm going to grab the tag right here called level raw, and I'll drag and drop it, boom, right here. Notice something interesting happened. When I did that, this guy took on the properties of the dot min and max, which we'd set up earlier at the tag level. Let me look at something here. If I do this, Yeah, you can change this here to different channels. I'm going to leave it to alpha channel, which gives me the blue and the yellow background here. So I'm going to click the OK button. Interesting, if you look long enough, you're going to wonder, this is at the 75 percentile right here. I believe it's trying to get that from probably the level raw simulate. I don't know for sure, but that's what I think it's trying to. But I also want to add a scale to the side of this thing. So the scale I'm going to look for is going to be in the right side of Crimson. I'm going to go into primitives here, go into primitives. And oddly enough, I'm going to go into the category called legacy primitives. Now, if you're already looking at something here, if you hit the home button here, you get to the top selection. I'm going to go into legacy primitives here. And in legacy primitives, these are some of our older primitives or graphics here. If you look here, for instance, here's a C2 simple vertical scale. This one right here looks like a nice scale to use, but if you look long enough, you'll see there's no numbers in it. There's no numbers inside here. So, that's not what I want to use. So I'm going to grab the slider bar over here, slide down about the middle of my choices, somewhere where I get close to this sinusoidal waveform. And you'll see right here there is a C30 vertical scale that if you look long enough, it has numbers on the side. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to grab this guy, and look at this. I'm going to drag it out here like this, and I'm going to roll my mouse. I'm going to drag it in here. What I do, team, is I'll put it, I'm trying to line up, it's not going to be exact here, but I'm trying to line up this top line right here with the top of this thing, so I can always use my my mouse to go up and down here, or my keypad. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab this dot right here in the middle, and I'm going to stretch this guy down here like so. I can always roll out, and then I roll back in. And I'm trying to get it right about there. It's pretty close if you ask me. All right. Now, I want this thing to get its values from the tag level raw, its dimensions, if you will. So what I'm going to do here is, since this is highlighted, I'm going to right-click, use my right-clicker. And if I use my double-click, which I can, what happens a lot of times is people accidentally move things. So, and before I even do this, look here. I just saw this. I must have dragged it. So I'm going to fix that. That guy should be right about there. And then double-check my, yep, that's good. Okay, so right-click, go to Properties. I'm going to right-click, go to Properties. And look, we want this thing to get its properties from the tag called level raw. So I'm just going to drag level raw right into here, like this. And something weird happened. You'll see that this went to 0 to 0. That's because here in the Crimson environment, level raw, ironically, is going between 0 and whatever level max is that's at runtime. So in the configuration software right now, it doesn't know that it can go up to 100 here. So that's why it's set to 0 to 0. I'm going to click the OK button. Another thing here I want to talk about is if you happen to have made this like where it's like that, when this gets too big, so let me just cheat a little bit. If I right-click on this and jump to the tag level raw, apparently I'm not doing anything down here in the simulate. So I'm going to put in here a simulate, let's say I go to 55, for instance. I'll put a 55 in. Go back to display pages. It's still 0 here, 0. I'm going to click on here anywhere just to update. Nothing really changed there. Let's see if I double click on this guy. No, it didn't really take on that. You know what? That is supposed to actually, let me go back to level max here. Let me put in a 100 here at level max. Let's see if this migrates through over here. I'm going to click out here. Aha! That's what I wanted to see. Once I clicked, this registered, updated. Now, what I'm saying here, this is a kind of a gotcha, team. Anytime the primitive, the border for it is not as big as the characters like this, so if I was to leave this in this state here, if I ever change the scaling, it would not override or clear these, so it kind of would leave some lost pixels. So you always want to make sure that this guy, this new mouse of mine, is always as wide as that. So that's perfect. And then if I want to move this over a little more, I certainly could. I might even do this, team. I'm going to move this guy just over using my arrows like this. And then I'm going to click on this one, move it over here like this. All right, let's test this. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my hard drive. And let's go ahead and download it. Before I download, there's what's on the screen right now. So let's go ahead and save it and download. Let's see what happens. All right, so level, well, look here. This is pretty cool already. Level max is set at 20. So if I was to change this, click here and put in 30, for instance, notice, team, the scaling changed accordingly. That's pretty cool. If I was to change this to, say, 50, it changes. So that's pretty good. I'll go back to my 20 here. There's the 20. Okay. Level raw is currently at 0. There's nothing here. So if I turn my pump on, let's go ahead and turn our pump on here. Hey, look. Our tank is filling up now. So we get a contrast, a beautiful looking contrast. As it fills up, we're also getting a 4 to 20 milliamp signal from the top that's showing up here. And let's just run through our math, our logics here a little bit further. Okay, so it's all filled up, and now we see overflowing. Okay, that looks perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and shut my pump off here. Turn that off. And then if I open some valve, which we're going to add here in a little bit, we should be able to get it to drain down. So that's pretty cool on our tank level right now. Let me go ahead and turn off our valve, and we can have it sit right there. Perfect. Okay, that's it for this one. We'll move on to the next video in a second.